Now let's get into what was said in the first meeting. So there are a lot of things said. Professor Manzi, you're my favorite. Professor Manzi, you're way smarter than Luke.
I remember that.
Yeah, so these things, you hear them all the time, but just joking. Good afternoon, good afternoon, good afternoon. Dallas College, Dallas College, Dallas College. I just unplugged my headphones. Well, here we are again, folks. It's another Monday, which means just another manic Monday. Wish it was Sunday.
Everyone's tuned out.
Luke, take it away.
I'm gonna pass.
You know who's not going to pass? Most of your students.
True.
All right, folks.
Also true.
Well, we're back here in the studio. And yeah, this is the second meeting of the Philosophy Club Radio Hour, which is an offshoot of the Philosophy Club proper. The Philosophy Club proper meets every Wednesday at 1 p.m. in Netcheese Hall 133. N-E-C-H-E-S Netcheese.
That's
Hall.
good, because I've heard that pronounced probably 8 ways from 8 different people.
I will say this. So there was a little bit of confusion on where we were meeting for the first meeting, the first go around, and oh hey, what's up? Welcome.
Does she want to come in here?
What'd you say?
Does she want to come in here?
No, she's good.
Okay.
No, she's just fine. Don't you worry, she's just
But
fine.
don't ask her, you know.
No, we decide for all the students. But yeah, it's interesting. I put a little note on the wall where we originally said we were meeting, and no mistake of our own. I mean, we met at the same place for a while, so it was force of habit from a holdover officer. And I walked by that same room now 5 days later, and I still saw the sign. It was right there, front and center. Philosophy Club in Netcheese Hall, Route 133.
All right.
Oh, look, I even dated it, 9/22. That's neither here nor there, folks. The point being is this. We are thrilled to be back in the studio. We had our first meeting. It went pretty dang well. We had, what would y'all say? Because everybody here was at this meeting. We had like 45, 55 people? Maybe more like 75 people?
Was it that many? I feel like it was more like 40, 35 or 40.
I think it was about 100.
Okay.
Yeah. We had to move into 4 different
Oh,
rooms.
that's hilarious.
We just kept multiplying.
Yeah, like I got chills. They're multiplying. And I do have chills when I think about the Philosophy Club and everything we're going to set out to do today. Now, the way this is going to work, every subsequent show, beginning with this one, is that we're going to kind of discuss, a little recap of the meeting. Now, back in the day, when this show first got started, there was a name for this segment. We called it the Re-Quack, because we're Thunder Ducks and ducks quack. So let's get at the Re-Quack.
Why not the quackback?
The quackback. I like that too. But that's what happens when a student defies me. They quack back. So yeah, we're going to talk about that. And again, we came up with the topic last week right here on the radio show. The topic was, again, in the post-pandemic, we're not necessarily post, but given the state of affairs that the pandemic encouraged, set off, you might say, did one's, I guess, perception of friendship and the feeling of belongingness, did that change? Another way to put it would be, did we start to imagine ourselves as making long-lasting friendships and feeling like we belong without actually necessarily being in a new physical location or without necessarily hanging out with friends face-to-face? Did that impact us, and if so, how? And then, of course, that gave rise to next week's topic. I'll go ahead and plug it at the top. And then again at the bottom, next week's topic is, what is the function of the emotions? Another way to put it might be this. What role do the emotions play in a human life, in human experience, especially one that is attempting to attain some sort of happiness? On the one hand, you could say, well, perhaps emotions are vulnerability. They're a weakness of sorts. They need to be sort of conquered and commanded, sort of marshaled in such a way where they're serving your rational deliberation and they're not necessarily leading it. On the other hand, you can argue that, well, perhaps some of the most, I guess, sacred, special experiences we've ever had in our lives individually were emotional. the emotion was somehow at the core of that. And if that's the case, then maybe emotion is more directly tied to happiness than we think. So yeah, some of the ground we're going to cover today. Now let's kick it around for introductions. We'll start all the way there in mic 14. Start Professor Ulrich.
Oh, hello, Professor Ulrich.
What's up, y'all?
Good to be here. Second week.
There's one available.
I really enjoyed the first week, and it's nice to see also having new people come into the studio. So it's good to be here. Looking forward to hearing introductions.
We have a studio audience, folks.
Yes.
I'm next.
Take it away, El Presidente.
My name is Tiffany Murphy, and I am a student. I would say a student of life. I don't really have a particular study that I like, or a subject I like more than any others. I like to learn all kinds of new things, and that's why I'm here. And this is the second week, and I'm still learning as we go. So that's pretty much all I have to say about that.
Yeah, and I will just add on that. She does have a favorite discipline. It's philosophy. Moving on. Who else do we have in the studio?
At least for now. Right. While in studio.
We'll ruin that.
Yeah.
For this hour.
Hey, hey everyone. My name is Kelson. If you ever forget my name, just remember if you mess with Kelson, he'll teach you a lesson. So that's just a cool rhyme. I'm a data security intelligence major. That's my career path. That's my major. So like I have a lot of technical understanding and most of my days is filled with technical analysis. So philosophy is a way how I can think outside the box and allow me to think deeper than just knowing what fits into what box, what port works with what wire. And that's why I really enjoy philosophy. And then Professor Lucas does an amazing job to teach it some days.
Could you? I'm sorry, I didn't hear that. Could you say that again, please?
He wants it in writing.
Every once in a while.
Yeah. So like overall, I really like it. And then I'm planning on creating a real estate club. So if anyone's out there who's interested in real estate and the different and gaining equity in a property, hit my line and sign the signature.
Yeah, I mean, great introduction. Yeah, it is worth stating that if you're interested in creating your own radio show or creating your own club, there's still opportunity for that. All right, let's kick it over to my right here. Hi. Just feel free to introduce yourself, whatever you're studying, any sort of other clubs you want to plug or anything like that.
Hi, my name is Karen Patry. I'm under Professor Mansi class, and I'm studying to be a psychologist. And in this class of philosophy is helping me a lot, is making me discover a lot about my personality and how philosophy is, I would say, the first tool that you can utilize in all your life experiences, because everything becomes with a question, right? Everything is a question, the argument, and that's the flow in life, right? So this class is helping me a lot, and it's also helping me to know a lot of people that doesn't have to think like me, and we can still be friends.
How about that? And, that does take us to that first topic, friendship. And I'll introduce myself, I suppose. My name is Professor Manzi. I'm the co-advisor of the Dallas College Philosophy Club, alongside Professor Ulrich, my adopted son. And yeah, so we're happy to be here and, bringing philosophy to the radio waves. All right, so yeah, pleasure to have y'all back, and of course, pleasure to have you for the first time. And to the audience, pleasure to have you. It's a pleasure to be here. Hey, thanks. I knew it would be. So yeah, I guess let's kind of, picking up where you just kind of left off here, friendship. What did y'all think of the conversation? And I don't mean to start so broadly, but keep in mind, it was the first time we had like a face-to-face club meeting for a very long time. Everybody there that was in attendance had never before attended a philosophy club meeting in the flesh, so to speak. Now, do keep in mind, our meetings, we also allow you to attend virtually. Again, we have Microsoft Teams. Send us a request on Microsoft Teams, Dallas College Philosophy Club, and even if you can't be there physically, we'll kind of stream it up on the big whiteboard. We had some people there. The point being is this. that did y'all, because I wanted to ask you this as people who were, experiencing Philosophy Club for the first time. I mean, I know, others have attended before digitally, but just being in the room with all of these people and like looking at them directly in the eye and feeling, well, what were you feeling? Because we were talking about stuff like friendship and, it gave way to conversations about the emotions, kind of deep stuff, kind of, personal stuff, individual stuff. And so, I don't know, did you feel like more maybe nervous than you expected, or maybe you felt more comfortable, like, oh, we're just getting back in the groove again? Was it an uncomfortable experience initially to kind of just come out of your shell and speak your piece on the topic, and then engaging with other people and going back and forth? Was that like reinvigorating, or was it sort of just like really created kind of an anxious feeling? I'm just wondering.
Just me personally, I enjoyed it 100%.
Awesome.
I just miss like the physical interaction, like the physical presence, like the physical company of joining like a social club and that physical interaction. Like I feel like that's important. And then B, just to have like a safe place where like no one is judged for having their train of thought. Because nowadays where you can call it cancel culture, you can call it correctiveness, or you can call it whatever you like. However, certain trains of thoughts are penalized, and just having a safe place where one can present those thoughts and one can present those train of ideas without getting derailed, without getting like mocked or whatever is extremely vital.
Jack, clip that. No, fantastic. I'm glad to hear you say that. That's what I'm hoping for. Like that was the goal, is that, try to create a comfortable environment. And the Philosophy Club's always been this way since, we started meeting in 2016. It is a safe space. You can go there and express your thoughts in a way where they're going to be received by people who are interested in hearing what you have to say. And they're going to be met with, again, that same sort of respect, that same sort of dignity, that everybody's there trying to understand something about the philosophical nature of the topic. And so that's great. I'm glad to hear that was your experience. That's what I hope everyone's first experience is in the club, as well as all of their experiences. Anybody else?
Can I say something?
Nope. Yeah, of course you can. Yeah, by all means.
I just want to add, what Carlson, right? It was Carlson.
Yeah.
What Carlson said is, I'm 100% with him. It has been a wonderful experience to be around people, cut their energy. But I think most importantly, for me, it was seeing people that it cannot be agree with me, but we can have a wonderful and enjoyable conversation about any topic. It has been very respectful. And that's what I learned about philosophy in the beginning. And I think I told you when we have the first conversation, right, that philosophy is giving me another perspective of how to interact between human beings. Not always have to be a disagreement that ends up with a broken relationship. It can be a disagreement that ends up with two parts learning something new and move forward.
Yeah, I love that sentiment. I agree. Because, it's worth mentioning, sometimes the conversations will get a little passionate in the Philosophy Club, but, it's all love. It's because people are excited to be talking about this stuff. And, I like to believe, at least, that people want to see their views challenged because they're trying to get a better understanding of their beliefs. Not just what they believe, but why they believe it, and maybe why they shouldn't. So, again, I'm really, it heartens me to no end to hear that. And so... yeah, but let's talk to somebody who's attended meetings, at least virtually, before over there. What about you? What do you think? Oh,
Me or Lucas?
You.
Oh,
I
I really wanted to hear what they said first.
That's fair.
But there was a definite energy in the room of, it just seemed like everyone was really excited to be able to be in person again and like see other people's body language in addition to just hearing voices. And it was I would say it was pretty invigorating. It was a good group, and the conversation I feel like kind of got a little wonky. as we went on, I feel like we kind of tangented a little bit, but that was
True.
that's part of the fun of it.
True.
But yeah, there was definitely a really good vibe going. I think everyone was really excited to be in person in a room together, talking about something we love.
Yeah, I mean, that's fantastic. Well, that'll do it for this episode, folks. No. Okay, so let's, so now that we've kind of addressed what the experience was like, let's get into the conversation proper. Now, again, Tiffany, you're saying that the conversation was a little tangential, and I do think maybe some of that had to do with kind of being back and meeting together for the first time. Because I know, especially because I remember when I was in the philosophy club, when I was an undergrad, so we're talking like, I want to say 1958, I remember feeling like, oh, here it is, day one. I gotta say something to let everybody know where I'm coming from. And then when you start to talk, sometimes you just keep talking. Because now it's like, okay, well, I'm on a roll here. Let me just say everything I want to say. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But I think when that happens, suddenly there's a lot for everybody else to latch onto, and then tangents happen as a result. And not that they're completely unrelated, but yeah, there is sort of like, well, let's stay on topic, but at the same time, much like this podcast, it's free form. There's no like agenda we have to hit. It's not a class. I'm not trying to hit certain points in the lecture. It really is just wherever the conversation goes, naturally let it go that way, with the understanding that some people are here to hear a conversation on the emotions or on belongingness, whatever the case may be. So yeah, I think that's good in the first meeting. So there are a lot of things said. Professor Manzi, you're my favorite. Professor Manzi, you're way smarter than Luke.
I remember that.
Yeah, so these things, you hear them all the time, but just joking. But some things I heard that were especially interesting to me when it came to friendship was sort of the foundation or the grounding for what makes a friendship, because the idea seemed to be, if you have this fundamental grounding, then the sort of other external circumstances don't necessarily impact it. So, again, I guess I'll turn it over to y'all. What do you think grounds a friendship, and were those conditions able to be maintained adequately enough during quarantine? It's dead air, folks.
Personally, or what we discussed in the meeting?
Either one. Yeah. Well, it is the, would you say the quack back? It is the quack back, so maybe we should quack back.
Yeah, maybe.
Maybeek.
No.
Hey! Still got it, folks.
You got to deliver us caffeine if you're going to deliver jokes that bad.
Jack Cutter Mike.
So for me personally, and I don't even know if this was even brought up because I was more interested in listening to everyone else's input last time, but for me personally, it's the idea of an intimate connection, in a friendship. It's I see you, and you see me, and I'm here for you, and it goes beyond basically what can you do for me and what can I do for you, which is kind of where I feel like a lot of the meeting was touching on
Right.
points of friendship that revolve around convenience or keeping each other in check or serving as role models for each other. All of these things, which towards the end of the meeting I brought up, to me are very transactional. But for me, at least in my personal relationships, I want them to transcend that. And so that's something I wish we had time to talk about, but that would have been another tangent. So,
Call this the tangent hour.
Well, I don't even know if it's necessarily a tangent.
Yeah.
It seems to me friendship, which you're talking about, does have to. If asked, you have to do something which is outside of the norm of even stuff that you want to do. Let's say somebody's car breaks down, their battery dies. You're
Pulling from real life, are we?
You're sitting at home, and they give you a call, and they say, "Hey, battery's dead. I need you. I need you to help me out." Well, you can see some people that you're going to ask, they might not help you. "Oh, sorry, can't do it right now." But a friend doesn't really think, can I help them or not? They say, somebody's in need, and if somebody's in need who's my friend, you just help. There is no other analysis to be done.
I appreciate that. I also appreciated you attempting to jump my car on Saturday.
You're
That was very nice of you.
Aw, romance.
Yeah, yeah, oh yeah, big time. But yeah, I like that. I like the emphasis on a lack of thought, because sometimes, and this gets to the emotions topic actually. Sometimes being a friend is almost acting impulsively, but it's an impulse that's driven not by, like, I don't know, intelligence per se, or sort of reasoning. It's driven by just, oh, somebody that I care about is in need, and I am in a position to be there for that person or those people. So the deliberation becomes how to be there, not should I be there. But that doesn't always happen. And at the same time, if I'm being honest, I consider myself good friends with a few people, and there are times where they were in need, and I just didn't feel like helping them, and I didn't. Never with you, Luke. I always helped you, Luke. But there are others. And so I bring this up because I don't know if that would make me a bad friend. Would it just make me a friend who's simply just cannot be there for another friend at that time for whatever reason, personal reasons, physical exhaustion, whatever the case may be? Would I lose that intimate connection if I didn't help my friend out when that person needed me? Or is it more of a multiple thing? Or if you go, 4 or 5 times without helping out that person, then it's like, okay, there's clearly no friendship here.
Yeah, I think you're speaking of friendships in terms of something that's static, and I don't think that that's how they exist. I think we're always in a constant state of change, and so our relationships are always in a constant state of change. I can think of people, 15 years ago that I was really, really tight with, and now we don't hardly ever talk. So that doesn't make me a bad friend or them a bad friend. It's just everything is a constant state of flux.
But isn't that scary? Because don't you like to think that your friendships are sources of stability and reliability? And that even if something bad does happen, that's never going to change. Or if we go years without talking, that's never going to change.
Well, you have to put the work in where you see, if you have friends that are valuable to you and you enjoy their company and the connection is valuable to you, then yes, you have to put the work in, or else that friendship could be lost. But sometimes there are factors that are outside of you,
Well, that's kind of what I'm getting at here, is the idea of lost friendships. And I wonder if there were, there were a lot of romantic relationships that couldn't withstand the pressure of the quarantine and pandemic. But do you think that happened for friendships? Do you think there were friendships that were lost specifically because the conditions that, forged the friendship in the first place were no longer being met? Or another way to put it might be this. Did you have to take an inventory of your friends, and maybe your family as well, and say, okay, it's going to be a lot harder to maintain these relationships now that, we're confined to our home. Who do I want to make an effort for, and who do I not want to make an effort for? Anybody have to face the music like that?
Well, just back to the kind of. I believe so. But I believe it's kind of convenient to say that I don't want nothing in return. I'm just going to be there for someone because it's my friend.
Right.
I think that's wrong. I think that's false. I think that's the same thing with, we brought up a child and a mother, and I believe it is transactional because you're only doing that for someone because Lucas believes whenever he needs it, you'll be there for him. If he didn't think that if he needs it, you'll be there for him, chances are he might not have done it.
Luke, I'll be there for you, buddy.
So I think everything is economics. Economic is the sum of all transactions. I think friendship is the sum of all transactions, and you're willing to do something. You're willing to be conscious and a sentient human being in the terms of you're willing to do something for someone because you're hoping in return that they'll do for you. A mother is willing to spend 18 years raising a child and a father because whenever they become weak, whenever they become brittle, whenever they become older, they're expecting the same return. They're expecting the same loving. They're expecting the same, nurturing nature. They're expecting you scratch my back, I scratch your back.
Yeah.
I think that's what friendship is. I think that's, if we're being honest, that's what life is.
Okay, no, that's a solid piece because, especially when you put it in terms of the end of life and stuff like that. It's almost quid pro quo in that sense. It's like I raised you when you were a helpless infant. Now I'm a helpless elder,
Yeah.
so to speak. Can you Can you help me? But okay, that's interesting because, well, I don't disagree. I hate speaking in double negatives. I agree that there is something to that. But I wonder if, we can make a distinction between describing, what happens, because all relationships are transactional by nature. I think that's a tough thesis to counter. But is the transactional nature necessarily the motivation behind decisions we make for friendships? Like, are we thinking about the transaction every time we impulsively go to help a friend? I think your point is that maybe not consciously, but yeah, that's in the back of your mind somewhere.
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
Yeah, and especially when it is time where you need help, and your friend is like, "Yeah, I can't be there for you." And you're kind of like, "Well, I sacrificed so many times. Like, what are we doing here?"
Yes, sir. I think it's like the free market. It's like capitalism. It's like you might do something because you might how do I explain this? You might create a good. You might do a good because you really care about people. However, at the back of your mind, you also know that the more good I do for people, the more that they give me their money, the richer I become. So you're doing a good.
Yeah.
However, you understand that doing the good also comes with real life and materialistic rewards for doing that good. So no matter your incentive or your motivations, you understand that those incentives carry consequences, either good or bad. And if you create a good for the world, good tends to come back to you in terms of like financial success.
Yeah, and even building on that, goes beyond financial success as well. Sometimes it's emotional satisfaction you get from something. And so it's not so much you're like, oh, well, this guy will give me a loan one day. It's like, okay, well, this person will, remind me of how awesome I am when I'm feeling down in the dumps and stuff like that. That's still a transaction, even if the currency is different. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I think that's an excellent point.
I think it's I think it makes sense what you're saying. I think it's also very grim. I think as humans we aim for something more than that. I mean, you would never go up to the altar and say, I take you to be my spouse so long as I get something back in return. Like that's not what we aim for in our relationships. You can maybe boil it. Oh, Manzi, that's your.
Yeah. There are a couple people in the room are divorced. I'm just saying.
That's on your dating profile. No, quid pro quo. No,
I put the pro in
I think we by nature we want something more. We want something higher than just I give to you, you give to me. Like that doesn't seem spiritually fulfilling at all.
Agree.
So there is a transactionalness, but it's not always economic, right? Because you're not getting any type of monetary reward from some of the things that your relationships are giving you, your friendships are giving you, but you are getting something out of it, or you wouldn't be in it. And so I don't necessarily know if I would call it economic, but keeping the idea of there is a transaction, because if it was always sometimes they are always one way. But
that's a parasite. If it's one way, that person's a parasite and he's leeching off of you. That's not a
God.
Right. But some people are in relationships where one person likes to give and one person likes to receive. And there are certain personalities that like to give and give and give because they get something out of that. There are personalities that like to receive, and you will see. You can call it parasitic. It's kind of an apt term. But either way, there's a transaction going on, and people are getting, it seems, what they want out of that. I really don't know where I'm going with this. Either I'm kind of agreeing and trying to make a differentiation between it's not necessarily economic, but it is transactional.
Yeah, basically you can't reduce away the transactional component. That it's a key. It seems like it's a key component. But the question is, and I think this is where Tiffany's going with it, is like, well, how primary of a role does it have to play? So, there's a transactional element between me and my dog, but, that's not the primary motivation behind the relationship. Well, maybe it is for him. Otherwise he can't get cookies or get walks or anything like that. But yeah, I like what everybody's saying. I think it's not necessarily one way or the other. I think it's a combination there. With the transaction, this is, I think, your point, Luke. The transaction element is kind of undeniable, but maybe another way to put it would be this. What are the commodities involved in various kinds of human transactions? And again, they're not necessarily material, although you can argue most are. But when it comes to things like friendship, it seems like the very things that make a friendship fulfilling were at risk of being robbed during quarantine. Spending time together, doing activities together, relating to the activities you just shared together, going out and sort of grabbing dinner or drinks after that. Like these activities that are so crucial to forging friendships, or like playing sports, playing a game of basketball or wiffle ball or something like that. Now that we couldn't do that for a while, it was like, well, how do these friendships last if all the activities that founded these friendships, even long-lasting friendships, are no longer around? Case in point, I mean, I keep in touch with all of my high school and college friends from for a fantasy league, a fantasy baseball league. But last summer, there was no baseball season for like the first 4 months. And you know how often I talk to those kids? Not at all. It doesn't mean, and so that's why I kind of like to contextualize the idea of friendship in light of recent developments in the world. Is that, did we have to learn how to make friends again? Or did you have to remember why you were friends with people in the first place, even after you lost touch with them? And did it maybe give you a realization like, oh, well, okay, I mean, I didn't realize our friendship was so circumstantial. Maybe it's not as deep as I thought it was. Deep thoughts, folks.
I think transactions are the foundation of any friendship, of any relationship. You give to me, I give to you, and then not only transaction in terms of like monetary wise, but in terms of like creating a burden. Because I believe like humans, we're creatures of burdens, and we create character from having responsibilities and taking care of those responsibilities. So if we have a transactional relationship, and I'm depending on you to accomplish a task, I'm depending on you to do something for me, and you successfully like fulfill those burdens, like my character, like that shows you your character, and that's going to reflect on me, and I'm going to see that you're a good person.
Okay.
So then, like, I think because of quarantine, people lost their burden opportunities, because you can't be the hero if there's no crime. You can't be the hero if there's no villain.
It's a great take.
You can't create you can't create character and burdens if there's no burdens to carry for someone. If there's no opportunities to carry those loads off of them, and that's how I believe that friendship is created, and not only friendship, that's how I believe character is created.
Yeah, and just to build on that, that's also how identity is created, maybe.
Yeah,
I mean,
sure.
if you identify yourself as a hero to people, or a good friend to people, and then the opportunities to be heroic or be a good friend have dwindled to the point of nothingness, you might even have something like an existential crisis.
Yes, sir.
Where you're like, well, what's my purpose now?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic.
Which is, okay, I think this is the point at which, when we were having the discussion earlier, that we kind of bifurcated. Because for Kelson, when he's talking about, you can kind of have a relationship with somebody that you're doing something for. Anytime I think of good friendships, it's always when that stuff's done. So let's say I'm working with somebody and we're at work. I don't consider us necessarily being friends with work. We might even do things for one another.
Yeah.
But when we get off work and we're able to actually do away with the transactional nature of our relationship, then we actually get to hang out and be, let the friendship thrive. But maybe it's just a different way that I look at friendships. Any boss that I've ever had, I don't necessarily see myself as ever really having a relationship with them. People at work where there is a strong hierarchy, I don't necessarily see myself as having a strong relationship with them.
Okay.
And it's usually after work where it thrives. So I think something interesting is there. Colson, you want to respond?
Yeah, I believe that the reason why you're open to communicating with them and building a relationship is because you see that they're successfully able to handle their burdens at work. If while they're at work, they're stressing, they're becoming out of character, they're engaging in behavior that you seem risky, that you seem isn't completing their burdens, I feel like you might not hang out with them. I feel like you hang out with people after you see competence in them, and competence is just the ability to handle your burdens. You see a good father. The reason why he's a good father because he's able to handle his burdens of having kids. If he's not a good father, the chances of you interacting and mingling with him is going to decrease because he's not able to handle his burdens properly. And I believe if your coworker didn't handle their burdens properly, didn't accomplish the task. If they were supposed to do something and they didn't do it, that's going to create disdain in your heart because they didn't complete their burdens. And now they're unreliable. And now you can't trust them because you might not know the next time you need a transaction if they're going to be reliable enough to come through. So that automatically puts the friendship on edge.
Good. I think that that's right. There has to be some level of respect with people that you're going to have a friendship with, or you can't really have a friendship with them. And you're expressing one of the higher levels of respect for you is seeing that they have competence, they're able to take care of their stuff. And if they didn't, why would I want to hang out with that person? So yeah, I can understand exactly why you would say that. Good.
Yeah, great insights. I mean, because when you first started talking, Luke, I was thinking like, as far as my experience goes, and this does not apply to Dallas College, but just every other job I had before Dallas College, there was friendships would be formed at the workplace by complaining. By complaining about people who are incompetent, by complaining about maybe bosses who aren't necessarily doing as well of a job as you think they could be doing. And that's almost like an icebreaker for people who work together. Like, man, doesn't this stink? Yeah, it does. The way that students bond in my class. So I think there's something to that. But then, listening to the two of you go back and forth there, I can't help but wonder if there is something to this idea of friendships being reflective of who a person is. And I don't necessarily mean birds of a feather flock together, but something along the lines of, okay, what would be an example? Okay, so something like this. Some people want to, going back to the previous example, some people maybe want to feel like they're somebody's savior. Or they want to feel like they're heroic, or they're like, a cut above the rest, the sense of superiority, in a way where it's because you're doing good things and moral things. And so people like that might seek out individuals who are always in need of help, because that gives you constant opportunities to reinforce the thing about you that you like the most, which is, yeah, I'm the guy who's always there whenever anybody needs it. But to y'all's point, while somebody who's in constant need of help in such a way where it's not as though circumstances are stacked against them, but they're simply not making the efforts themselves, it seems as though those people are very difficult to have a great deal of respect for, because it seems as though they're not making the most of what they could be doing to I don't know, help themselves, whatever the case may be. The point is this. There's a difference between exploiting people and doing things that appear as though you're friends with that person. There's a difference between pitying somebody and then helping them charitably and actually being friends with somebody. And I think that distinction is exactly what you all hit upon. You have to respect the other person. Not the other person as a person. Obviously, you respect all people as people. But you respect the other person in terms of attributes that you admire, that maybe you wish you possessed, or that just generally speaking you think are objectively good qualities that the other person has. Again, it might be something like being there for you. It might be something like just, I don't know, calling you on your BS. Stuff like that.
Yes, sir.
So that respect is because if you don't respect a friend and a friend calls you out on your BS, you're not really getting called out because you don't respect the opinion anyway. So there does need to be this kind of sense of belonging in the friendship for the friendship to flourish, to blossom in a way that's mutually beneficial, in a way that only friendships can be. Yeah, because sometimes it's a transaction and they say return to sender. I'm not buying what you're selling here. And it takes a good friend to be able to not just call you out on that, but even recognize an inconsistency in your own actions in the first place. All right, yeah. So you had so much to say at the meeting. You've been so quiet.
I was so in love, listening so many opinions,
Oh, okay.
getting a lot of wonderful, inputs
Right on.
that resonate a lot. But I mean, in my own opinion, I think the meaning of friendship is lost somewhere, because some people is talking about transactional. Friendship is a transactional based. I think friendship is a bound based. You create bonds with someone. Transactional for me is not a friendship. It's a person I know. If I know you and I need something from you, you can give me something in return if I do something for you.
Okay.
But that's not a friendship. For example, in my own life, I'm foreign, and all my family is in Peru. I don't see
Oh.
them, I don't see them physically. I don't have time to hang out with them. I don't have time to call them every day. But when I call them, I feel the love, and they feel the love because there's a bond in there,
Yeah.
And the same
Yeah.
with my friends from high school. I mean, 32, 35 years of friendship. I didn't see them or talk to them for 10 years or more when I came to the U.S., and then we just meet and pick up the relationship where we left,
Yeah.
The bond has been created and is there. So I think that's the meaning for me, that friendship is something different to people I know.
Okay, because of the pre-established, I guess, relationship that you had. So it's like the reason why you can go months or years and then pick up where you left off is because of the experiences that forged the bond in the first place.
Exactly, the bond that it grew during the time that we were together.
Yeah. And of course, you remember experiencing it. You can kind of take yourself back there, remember what it felt like.
Exactly.
And it's like, well, I only felt like this with this experience with these people.
And I also think that now we're getting kind of the other hand of thinking about friendship, because if it's just a transaction, then we have the problem of when the transactions stop, like we started talking about this with COVID, well, how does the friendship retain itself through time? Well, it can't if friendship is just transaction. But if it's transaction plus we add in, there's this bond that's been formed. Well, the bond can remain through time. So now we have something to sustain when the transactions aren't going. So it seems as if now we kind of have two aspects to this friendship, which seem to go hand in hand together.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think I do want to make sure we have time to talk about the emotions, but this has been a really, really solid conversation. I think that's true, especially when you consider, I guess, the possibility of not remembering things. Have you ever had this experience? You really cherish the memory you had with a friend, or it could be a family member, it could be anything, and then you bring it up like years later, like, yeah, I remember that, and then the friends are like, I don't remember that at all.
Yep.
And you're like, what are you talking about? Like, that's like the core of our friendship was that night. And the guy's just like, no, I don't really remember much anymore.
I'm the I don't remember that person.
Are you really?
Oops. I have terrible memory.
But that's the thing. These bonds seem based on memory. Yeah, I'm sorry.
No, I was saying I'm the opposite side. I'm the one that
Always
always
remembers?
always remembers. And my friends are like, when did that happen? I'm like, don't you remember you were wearing this? I mean, I have
You
so
can start making
detailing,
things up.
Start making things
detailing, and,
Remember you owe me
but
$20?
but that's the good of friendship, that
Yeah.
have two opposite sides that can meet in a middle point to share.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, that's true, because that's fun when you jog your friend's memory. And you see a look on their face, like, oh, yeah, that was great. And then you almost see the bond materialize again, rematerialize.
Yeah. And then I think friendships are made through a transaction, but I also believe that you can also build a friendship by going through the same struggle, by going through the same by going through the same setbacks, by facing the same adversity. Like that's why people who may be in the same squad battalion in times of war, they create friendship because they go through the same person, they see the same enemy. In times of manifest destiny, or in times of the olden periods, they see the same dragon and they all attempt to slay the same dragon. So they create a bond, they create a friendship in that goal. But the reason why it still goes back to my point is you have to be successful in creating the burdens of those goals. If everyone is in a battalion and there's one guy that's supposed to bring the guns or whatever, and he didn't accomplish his burden, his task, you're not friends with him anymore because he didn't help you reach the goal of slaying the dragon, of slaying the demon, of overcoming your adversity.
I think it's really interesting because I think there is something to be said about going through hardships together and how that can almost create as strong a bond as maybe someone you grew up with and spent your childhood years with. I'm thinking about the woman who was my college roommate. When one of the first times when I moved out of my parents' house, she and I were roommates for 2 years. And we went on to lead very different lives. But now every time we get back together, it's funny. We call it a renaissance, because we'll go for a year or two without talking, and then we'll have like a night where we stay up all night. We drink 2 or 3 bottles of wine. We
That
cover
sounds
like
fun.
everything that what's going on with you. So we can go long stretches of time, and then we get back together, and it's like no time has passed at all.
Yeah.
Because that bond's there because of we went through those really awkward years together of being out of our homes, parents' homes for the first time.
Yeah, for sure. So, yeah, I mean, to your point, it's not even necessarily got to be, like a time of war scenario, but just a time of change.
Yeah.
And whoever you're undergoing that change with. And I think that's why high school and college is where you tend to make some lasting relationships, because you're in a very sort of vulnerable state yourself, and so is everybody else, and you get through it together. Yeah, that's interesting. So another thing that's interesting too is that it seems as though you need change, or you need burdens or trouble to have the conditions that will allow you to bond with people and make friends in the first place. Isn't that kind of weird? You need bad things to happen to make friends. Do you think that's true?
No.
I don't think you need bad things to happen. You just need things to happen. You need to experience things together.
I think going through it kind of sounds bad, but I think it builds character. I think 100%. I think
Sure, yeah.
I think it builds character, and I think it helps you. It helps you mature. It helps you realize that there is evil in the world, and if you're not careful, evil can overtake you. And I think that's the ultimate level of consciousness, being able to understand that your death is not only coming, but it might be near, and setting up, creating barriers, creating walls in order to stop that from coming, and creating barriers and walls for the people that you love and care for.
Okay. And we just went through a trauma, in terms of the pandemic, still going through it. Do you think we're all better friends because of it?
The opposite, because I feel like there's a
Really?
group of people. I feel like there's a group of people. I don't want to make it political, but I feel like there's a group of people that believe that the trauma is being overextended, and there's a group of people that's like, in order to share the same trauma and grow from that trauma, you have to perceive the trauma the same. You have
That's
to
a great
perceive
point.
the dragon as the same as the same demon. If someone sees the dragon as not as bad as something else, then you can't all endure the same change, the same progress through the change.
Yeah, you got to
So it
interpret
has been divisive.
It's been
The
extremely
politics of the pandemic has been
exactly
divisive in certain
Exactly.
relationships.
You have one side that says you must do 1, 2, 3 in order to be safe, and then you have the other side that says, "Hey, you don't have to do all that to be safe." So
Yeah.
like the dragon isn't a dragon. To one group of people, it's like a fire-breathing dragon. To another group of people, it's like a chameleon. Like it's not, it's not. It has false equivalence to two different people.
It's funny that you say that, because I actually made a really good friend during the pandemic.
Okay.
She was a former coworker, and I kind of keep my distance from coworkers because I like to maintain a
Professionalism.
professional. Yeah, and personally, I'm pretty goofy, silly myself, so I kind of keep that at home. So it's
Bring it to
hard. I thought. I mean,
you are. You have.
So I usually keep that tucked away, but then we had gone our separate ways. But the pandemic was like, okay, so you can't really hang out with people in person. So the conversations you do have, you want them to be meaningful, or you want to have a connection.
Yeah.
So I reached out to her because we were both designers at the same agency, and I wanted to talk to somebody who was on my plane, creatively speaking. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
For sure.
And so it kind of gave me an opening. The pandemic gave me an opening to reach out to somebody I probably wouldn't have, because I wasn't out physically.
Oh, I see.
I
Sure.
wasn't out with doing the same things with the same people that I usually do. It made me break my habits. So she and I actually got really close over the past few months. So that's been interesting.
That's a really good take, and I believe that one of the reasons why that you guys became really close over the pandemic is because you guys perceived the dragon as the same. If
True.
she didn't
Yep.
perceive
That's true.
if she didn't perceive the dragon of COVID the same as you did, and I inherently believe that what you believe is and what you think is how you behave, is how you act. So if her beliefs were different from yours, instead of staying in and adhering to the laws, if she was out clubbing every weekend, you might not interact
Right,
with her.
true.
'Cause-
Because part of that friendship was, when we started talking, we started talking about the pandemic. So
Yeah, exactly.
if we had very, very different views on what was going on, I'm pretty sure those conversations wouldn't have continued like they did.
Exactly. And I think life is all about like opportunity cost. Like it's not only about what you gain; it's about what you might have gained. And I think, yeah, and I think that even though you did find a cool friend because of COVID, you might have found more friends if it didn't happen. You know,
Maybe.
So like
Coulda, woulda, shoulda.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, well, thanks for sharing that. 'Cause I had a similar experience because it seems as though when you're living your day-to-day life and it's busy and you're running into people all the time and you know the people you're going to see, you expect to see them, you know what you're going to talk about, it's it kind of serves as a deterrent to try to maintain those, I guess, distance relationships, long distance. And I mean, again, like friendships and even, keeping in touch with your extended family, your aunts, uncles, stuff like that. But when you're just alone in your house, you can't go anywhere. Suddenly it's like you realize the opportunities that maybe were there all along, but they were kind of cloaked. They were in hiding. It's like, oh, I mean, technology being what it is, I can reach out to anybody right now, and I'm not going to see any of the people I usually see for the most part. So why not just reach out to people I haven't spoken to in a while and just see where we're at? And I mean, that's how I treated it initially, and it was pretty rewarding. Just checking in on people, and like, you realize, oh. To your point there about the dragon, it's like, well, everybody, maybe they're not seeing the situation the same way, but they're experiencing the isolation. And so that itself could be enough of a commonality to, at the very least, entertain rekindling an old friendship, or just, I guess giving it maintenance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's like any other hardship. You can choose to focus on the negatives and suffer, loss of friendships, or you can choose to, seek out the positives of the situation you found yourself in and figure out how to turn that around into something good, something beautiful.
Something optimistic.
100%. Amen. And then back to the suffering builds character. I wanna change my stance on that. I was thinking about it. Suffering doesn't necessarily build character. I believe it does build character. I think something else that builds character is learning from the suffering of others. That's why I believe postmodernists have it wrong, because you learn valuable lessons from the stories told by your ancestors through their struggles. You understand what made them change for the better through their struggles, through their adversities that they faced.
Yeah. And I think that's a solid point. A lot of the postmoderns, they write stories. They're into, because they believe the individual first-person perspective is the best way to translate existential lessons, in exactly the way you just described, like almost to a T. So I think that's a very good insight. We are running low on time, folks. We have another program up next. It's a music-based program, alternative rock. I recommend checking it out. Yeah, I mean, I guess we'll do any final thoughts before we wrap up. You don't have to have them if you don't, but if you do, let's hear them.
Add, if it's possible, if we start seeing friendship as a build relationship without expectation, a better relationship will come up with that, because you are not expecting anything in return. You are not expecting anything bad or good. You are just enjoying the course of the relationship.
But don't you expect to then enjoy the relationship?
Sorry, I didn't hear you.
But if you do kind of expect to enjoy the relationship, I'm just pushing back a little bit for the sake of it. But it's like, well, okay, I expect to enjoy my time when I'm with this person, and you kind of leave the expectations open. But let's say you don't enjoy your time you spend with that person, and then the next time you don't enjoy it, and then the next time you don't enjoy it, you're going to start feeling a little ripped off, even though you're not expecting a
That's what I'm
transaction.
saying. Don't, without expectation means that if something
No expectations.
without expectations.
Okay.
Live your relationship without expectations. Just enjoy the time is good. The time that is bad is for learn to, if you continue or if you have to move away.
Okay.
So I see relationships as parallel lines. As long as they go in parallel, they're gonna enjoy. But if they cross, like in math, each line is gonna take its own way.
Okay. Okay, so yeah, I
Smart
mean, that's a great take. I admire it. I think it's hard to put into practice.
Exactly.
Just but that doesn't mean it's not worth striving for. But yeah, I mean, I think it is. That's something that I think requires a lot of cultivation of mindfulness of other people, and you know, we're learning about that in class. All right, we got to go, folks. All right, so you're listening to KDUX Web Radio, broadcasting live from Richland Campus. We are the voice of Richland Campus, Dallas College. And again, it's KDUX, KDUX Studios. We are the Philosophy Club. This has been the Philosophy Club Radio Hour. Every Monday, 1 to 2. That's our hour, folks. So tune in or drop by. Check us out on YouTube. Check the Philosophy Club out on social media. We're on Instagram. We're on Facebook. We're on Twitter. Yeah, we're about to hit 300 followers on Instagram. Pretty exciting stuff, so the students tell me. But yeah, also every Wednesday, 1 o'clock, Netchie's Hall, 133. That's where the magic happens, folks. That's the actual Philosophy Club meeting. So if you enjoyed this conversation, or you like having conversations like this, or even listening to conversations, or you enjoy giving professors snacks, come on down to Netchie's Hall 133. We'll be there every Wednesday. And as far as the radio show goes, I guess there's only one thing we left you to do. Think about it. Remember,
about
folks?
it.
Think about it.
Quack, quack. All right. That was fun, y'all.